Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Brad with Alternate Dimensions. Here tonight, we're going to talk about the game Flesh and Blood. And I know there's been people have voiced some concerns over the name of the game. So, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up the company that makes it. The company that makes it is called Legend Story Studios in New Zealand. And their vision for the game is that our belief in the value of local communities goes right to the heart of our product design. Every time people come together in the Flesh and Blood to play our game, we achieve our goal. That's how they came up with the name of the trading card game. Yeah, it doesn't have anything to do with anything strange or weird. So let me put your mind to rest there. So what I'm going to do tonight is talk about this game, about what I know about the company, and what I like about the game. So this company spent 7 years designing the world of Wraith that they've come up with, and they've worked beyond just the regular lore. They've also worked on the mechanics of the game and how the game flows. And it's an ingenious design that is very different from Magic the Gathering or even Pokemon. And it's something I've sort of fallen in love with. I started exploring it a little bit during the pandemic, but this game launched last year during the pandemic. Actually, it launched in late 2019, but and during the pandemic, its sales continued to grow. It was absolutely ridiculous that a game meant to be played face to face with no online client was growing. So it intrigued me, and so I started doing some digging. And this company has a great vision and a great idea for what they're doing, and the more games that I get, the more intrigued I become with the base game engine. That's the reason that I wanted to start carrying product and start demoing the game. So as an intro to that, I'm going to play their Learn to Play video. Let's see if it will go full screen for me. Okay. And I'm going to shut up and let them talk about how this game is played, and see if you're as intrigued by this game as I am.
Welcome to Flesh and Blood Learn to Play. Flesh and Blood is a hero-centric, fantasy-themed trading card game. There are many classic fantasy classes to choose from, each with their own unique playstyle. We're going to learn to play as Ira, a vengeful ninja. Start the game with your hero and weapon in play. The object of the game is to reduce the opposing hero's life points to 0. This is your hero's intellect, or hand size. You start the game with this many cards in your hand, and at the end of each of your turns, you draw cards until the number of cards in your hand is equal to your hero's intellect. It's usually a good idea to use all the cards in your hand each turn to maximize the benefit of this redraw. Underneath your hero zone is your arsenal, where you can store a card for future use. At the end of your turn, before you draw cards, if you have any cards left in your hand and your arsenal is empty, you may put one card from your hand face down into your arsenal. you may only play cards from your arsenal. We will revisit what this means shortly. To play cards, you must work within two constraints. You can play one action per turn unless that action has Go Again. Ninjas are very agile, showcased by many cards with Go Again. In the Ira deck, you will find a number of cards that naturally have Go Again and a number of cards that conditionally gain Go Again. There are also cards that do not have Go Again. When you play an action that does not have Go Again, it will end your turn after it resolves. Cards have a resource cost that must be paid, found in the top right corner of cards in your deck, or the text box of cards with an activated ability. To gain resource points, you can pitch one or more cards from your hand when there is a cost to pay. A card's pitch value is shown by the number of socketed resource symbols. Each card in your deck also has a pitch value color strip. Blue cards pitch for 3 resource points, yellow cards pitch for 2, and red cards pitch for 1. Typically, you will be looking to pitch your blue cards to pay for your higher impact yellow and red cards. To pitch a card, place it face up into your pitch zone from your hand. At end of turn, before you draw cards, all cards in your pitch zone are put on the bottom of your deck in the order of your choice. In a game of Flesh and Blood, you nearly always go through your deck at least one time. So be mindful that you will be working with the cards you pitch later in the game. Now you know how to play cards, so let's look at combat. Combat is made up of one or more chain links. A chain link has 4 steps. The attacking hero plays an attack. The defending hero can defend with any number of cards from their hand. There is no cost to defend with cards. Simply put them onto the chain link you are defending. All defending cards are declared simultaneously during the defending window. The exception to this are defense reaction cards, which can only be played during the reaction window. The reaction window is where combat tricks are played. The attacking hero can play attack reaction cards, and the defending hero can play defense reaction cards. Compare the power of the attack against the defense value of all cards defending this chain link. If the power of the attack is greater than the total defense value, the defending hero takes damage equal to the difference. If the defending hero is dealt damage this way, the attack is considered to have hit. If the attack has Go Again, the attacking hero can now play another attack. The first attack of a combat chain is Chain Link 1, the second attack is Chain Link 2, and so on. Let's look at a combat example. It's Chris's turn. He decides to attack with Edge of Autumn. Chris pitches Head Jab, gaining 3 resource points. He spends 1 resource point to pay the cost of Edge of Autumn, and 2 resource points remain in his resource pool to use later this turn. Edge of Autumn becomes Chain Link 1 on the combat chain. Sarah now decides if she wants to defend the attack from Edge of Autumn. Sarah does not defend, taking 1 damage. At Chain Link 2, Chris plays Whirling Mist Blossom, which gets +1 power from Ira's hero effect. Whirling Mist Blossom has a powerful effect. If it hits, and it's the second or higher chain link in a row to hit, Chris will draw 2 cards. Sarah decides to defend with Flying Kick. Now we move to the reaction window. During the reaction window, only attack reaction and defense reaction cards can be played. Chris plays Lunging Press, giving Whirling Mist Blossom +1 power. Sarah's only option now is to play a defense reaction, which in the Ira deck is Springboard Somersault. If Sarah does not have Springboard Somersault, she will not be able to stop Whirling Mist Blossom from dealing 1 damage, and Chris will draw 2 cards from the hit effect. At end of turn, the combat chain closes, Edge of Autumn returns to the weapon zone, and all other cards on the combat chain are put into the graveyard. You will notice in the combat example, we refer to defense reactions as being played. Let's jump back to the arsenal. You may remember we mentioned cards can only be played from arsenal. That means you can't pitch cards from arsenal. You can't defend with cards from arsenal. You can only play cards from arsenal, paying costs as normal. As defense reaction cards are played to the chain, you can play defense reaction cards from arsenal, and in fact Springboard Somersault gives you a nice defensive buff for doing so. The last thing you need to know to get started playing Flesh and Blood is the first turn of the game rule. On the first turn of the game, At the end of turn, all players draw cards until the number of cards in their hand are equal to their hero's intellect. From that point onwards, you only draw cards at the end of your own turn. We hope this knowledge sees you well for your coming adventures in the world of Flesh and Blood. Welcome.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot to throw at you in 6 minutes. So, basically, this is a one-on-one fighting game. If you think of it like Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, you know, those fighting games. Samurai Showdown, any of those. Your characters have a life total and an intellect. The intellect is your hand size. Your hand, you can have more cards in hand than this, but if at any point at the end of your turn you have more cards in your hand than your intellect, you actually have to discard down, which is not something you see. I'll be honest, you don't see it in this game, or at least not yet. The hero has a special type, so whatever hero it is, they also have a class. So Ira is a ninja, so since she is a ninja, she can play cards that one's going to be stubborn. Yeah. So her weapon either has to be generic or it has to be a ninja weapon. Any of the starter decks are going to come with your character. It can come with your character card. It's going to come with your weapon or weapons. It's going to come with a number of other pieces of equipment. That's for the advanced tutorial. I will get to that. That one I'll do is more of an in-person one. And then the attack cards in your deck either have to be generic or they have to be of your class. So everything in the Learn to Play Ira deck that you'll get is either a ninja action, ninja attack, or a generic action or attack. And then there is the reaction cards. You'll notice that let's see, I'll use this one. So on lunging press, let me zoom in on this one a little bit. So there's a spot in both corners. A spot in the bottom left corner and a spot in the bottom right. Now, let me pull one up that has both. The yellow tipped arrow is the attack value. This has an attack value of 4. So if you play this as an attack, that's the amount of damage that it can deal if not blocked. The bottom right corner has a gray circle with a shield in it, and there's a number there. In this case, this is a 3. So if you play this as a defensive card, it will block 3 damage from your opponent's attack. Some cards in your deck are only going to have an attack value. Some cards are only going to have a defensive value, and some cards are going to have neither. Be aware of that. You usually want to be versatile. Now, I'll go back over the costs and the pitch value. So, the game is designed where no card in your deck should ever be dead. It's an important factor in how the game was designed. So, you can either attack with a card, you can defend with a card, or you can pitch a card to produce the resources in the game. Every card in the game that is in your deck pitches for some number of resources. It's either 3, 2, or 1. Currently, there are absolutely no cards that have a 0 pitch value. And card costs. They can vary. This is a Brutal Assault is a 2. The majority of the cards that you're going to deal with in the game cost from 0 to 3. But there are cards that cost more than that. The weapon is, whatever your weapon or weapons is a guaranteed attack that you always have in the game. So even if your hand is absolutely terrible and you draw 0 attack cards on your turn, you still have the ability to attack because you have at least one weapon on the table. Every hero in this game has some sort of ability, whether it's an activated ability or static ability like Iron. Excuse me. So there are 2 types of heroes in the game. There are 2 versions of each character that you get. So this is Dorinthia. She is a warrior of the warrior class. She is the young hero. Young heroes only have 20 health or less. This is what they call the adult version. The adult version have 40 health. Their abilities and intellect numbers are the same, so there's no difference between them other than the starting health total. They use the young versions for sealed, draft, and a constructed format called Blitz, which is designed to be a faster, slimmer version of their normal constructed form, classic constructed format. The adult heroes are used in that format. You will also encounter equipment. You get to start the game with 4 pieces of equipment. They also have a defense value. You can see that this one the Hope Merchant's Hood doesn't have a defense value. You're basically playing it for the ability. And there are both generic equipment as well as class-specific equipment. Some of these you are playing for their defensive ability, for their defense, like the Iron Rock Gauntlet, which has a 1 defense. And some of them you're playing for the ability, like the Hope Merchant's Hood, and some you're playing for both. So, you noticed as they played through that game, let me go back to, let's see. Yep, let me go back to the YouTube video.
Welcome to
I want to get it.
To pitch a card, place it face up into your pitch zone.
So, the pitch zone is important. So when you use a card for its resources by pitching it, at the end of the turn, any cards in this zone go on the bottom of your deck in any order. So what that means is you can literally stack your deck so that when you get to the proverbial end of your deck, you have exactly what you need to finish a game. There's only a couple other games that I know of that had a mechanic similar to this. Star Wars TCG and Wars TCG, which both use the same in-game system, where you can see a card and maintain its location throughout the remainder of the game, so when the time comes, you know exactly what you're drawing at exactly the right moment. Now, you'll notice there is a spot for 2 weapons. It's the arsenal, which lets you store a card for later use that you can play. They kind of went over that very well. There's a graveyard and a banish zone. So any card that is played, that was played onto the combat chain that you saw earlier, goes to the graveyard. Cards that go to the graveyard right now are typically they won't come back. Once they're there, they're there. So as the game goes on, you have less cards in your deck. You have let's see. Trying to get a good overhead shot. So the spots for your equipment, as you either use their abilities or defend with them, eventually they're going to go away. So the game is designed where you start in the game fully powered up, fully decked out, all your equipment, all of your attacks, all your responses, everything's there. And as you continue to fight, you get a piece of armor that's broken, or smashed in, and it becomes ineffective. Um, you've literally thrown technique after technique at a person until they know all your tricks. So that represents what's in the graveyard, what's there. And eventually, you're either going to run yourself out of cards in your deck, or you're going to find a way to win the game. So you start the fight fully decked out, and by the end, you've gotten tired and you've exhausted all your resources. So by far, it is the most realistically designed fighting game that I've seen in a very long time. And the system is fairly simple. Its basics are fairly simple to learn. But there's so much depth within the game. You don't realize it when you first start playing it, and to me, that's one of its great qualities. So, I know that there's been a lot of players, particularly Magic players, that have gotten disenfranchised with Magic over the last couple of years. Power level spikes have been too high. They've had to ban card after card after card, and that's not very good for player confidence. And there's players wary about coming back to Magic because of this. They don't want to follow that trap again. If you enjoyed Magic but are tired of seeing that happen over and over and over again, Legend Story Studios Flesh and Blood TCG might be what you're looking for. It has both a casual and a competitive aspect. If you're a competitive player, you have the ability to play in Grand Prix that qualify you for, or Pro Tours that qualify you for Nationals, would qualify you for Worlds. And my understanding is I think they said the World Championship they're giving away $1 million. They're in prize support, which is insane for a company. This game is a year and a half old, and this is not, this isn't something, Hasbro / Wizards that's got the money. So from a competitive aspect, there's incentive. From a casual aspect, the Blitz format is incredibly cheap. It's fast. Games are usually done in between 20 to 30 minutes. And it's everything that I've tried with it has been fun and interactive, where all players have gotten a chance to play their game, which is not always the case when you go to Magic. I had to, with Magic, I had to mulligan 3 times. Down to 4 cards, and then I just got beat in 4 turns. I had nothing I could do. In this game, every card gives you the ability to do something, including discarding them for resources if necessary, or pitching them for resources. Don't take my word for it. We have a a Learn to Play and Welcome event scheduled on the 14th of August at 1 p.m. at Alternate Dimensions. I'm going to be the one that will be demoing the game. I am going to schedule something with Terry so I can go through it with him as well. If you're looking for a mostly cheaper option, there are still some expensive singles, but they're going to be for the ultra competitive players. It gives you the option, like normally in Magic, you're going to play whatever you enjoy playing. Competitive players are going to be like, I'm going to play whichever is the most powerful. There were players in Legend of the Five Rings that played when I did that were like, I only play one faction, or I only play one style. So like, obviously for me, my favorite class is the ninja. I mean, it just appeals to me. The speed, the combo-iness that you get. Very tricky. It appeals to me, along with the lore. So let me show you the adult version. Ira does not have an adult version. I think that's because in the story he's not grown up yet. She's still just a young child. So Katsu is he likes to do combos, and he has the ability to play when he plays an attack that hits. You can discard one of your cheap cards and search for a card with combo in it and play it to start. So basically he gets to tutor his combo pieces. So he's tricky to play against. You have to be careful what you block and what damage you take because of this. Now, I will say that the majority of the effects in this game are limited to once per turn, unless otherwise noted. Unlike Magic, you can do it as many times as you have mana. Or in Pokemon, you only get one attack during your turn, and nothing else. But you do some of their abilities will let you do it more than once. But this is a really well fleshed out game. Now, if you're more of a collector, they have specific cards. They have a first edition release, and then they have an unlimited release. The first edition release comes out about a month before the unlimited release. They even say how much their print run was of their first edition boosters, and when they started printing unlimited boosters, they say it's whatever you want. Now, what's the major difference? In the first edition boosters, one per box, you got a foil card that was a different type of foiling. You got a normally you get what's a rainbow foil, so they're going to look like typical foils like you see in Magic. They had a specific printing called a cold foil, and it gives it more of a, I guess, metallic look to it, and it's only sections of the card rather than more of it. So those cards are incredibly expensive, particularly if you pull a legendary or majestic card. They're astronomical in price. So collectors are buying up the first edition boosters, and the players are buying the unlimited, which is perfectly fine because it serves both purposes. And rather than giving you cards that are different, like what Magic is by the different frames and the different pictures, what you get in the first edition and the unlimited boosters are identical, with the exception of, in the first edition, one card in the entire box is going to have a cold foil rather than a rainbow foil. That's your difference. And of course, they've even listed stuff that says, "Hey, some of our color strips weren't correct." Now, I will say, of the hero decks that were released in 2019, these were also first edition printings. I actually own a Katsu and a Rhinar deck, so I actually own one of the 10,000 decks. That was a contest, and I actually won that one. So I actually have one of those 10,000, and I have left them together. I have not removed them. But yeah, they made identical print runs for everything. So first edition is 400,000 booster packs, which is I want to do some quick math here because my brain is dead tonight. So that comes out. So boxes in this game are 15 cards in a pack, 24 packs in a box, and so they're between $70 and $80 a box for unlimited. For first edition, they can get pretty expensive because there's a premium on how much they are. 400,000 booster packs is roughly just under 17,000 booster boxes. So that's you can tell how limited a print run it is. So by that number, there is legendaries are one per case, so one per 96 packs. For you to get a legendary in first edition, there's only 4,170 or so copies of that, and then you add the cold foil on top of that, and you're looking at a very small percentage of cold foils in legendaries. So now I will say that they have started being a little better with what they're putting in the legendary slot. When they first started, it was a legendary piece of equipment, one for each class, and then one generic equipment that anybody could use. They've slowly rolled it back a little bit, where they're not putting all of those in the legendary slots. They're moving them down one level to the Majestics, which is better. But Majestics are like one in every 6 packs, and I'll tell you, it's actually a little more frequent than 6 packs, because the last box I opened, I pulled 6 Majestics and a foil. So the number's a little lower than that, but that's an average. Every pack contains a rare, will either contain a rare and something higher, or 2 rares. Every pack has a foil. And so I've opened a rare double mythic or majestic pack. So it, the other thing is, if you're interested in only one hero type, you can actually sit down and split a box and go, okay, I want this hero and their cards. You like, I want, let's say for me, I want the ninja class and the ninja cards, and another guy wants the guardian class and their cards, and one wants to be the warrior, one wants to be the brute, and y'all split up with what you got. It can actually be less expensive, very similar to the way L5R was. I only played Mantis, so Mantis is the only cards I was really interested in, and the rest was like sits in my trade binder. So there are a lot of positives to this game. Their website is called FaB, FaBTCG.com, if you want to explore more. It'll actually give you a backstory on the heroes in the game. If you click on these, they have a story talking about who they are, how they somewhat became what they were. Wizards, rangers. So Mechanologist is sort of the steampunk. Ruin Blade, this guy's pretty cool. Shapeshifter. And then they added subtypes in Monarchs. They had light and shadow, so you could play light cards, you could play illusionist cards, or you could play generics. So it gave you a sub-classification that you could play. Not sure what the next set's going to bring, but and it kind of gives you an idea about what cards are his and which specializations he has. And then there's a story section, as well as this is the world of Wraith. Um, yeah, so the Katsu and Ira and Benji are all from Mysteria. And then the next set is set in Aria. So if you actually click here, it will tell you about Aria, its history, and what goes on here. So yeah, if you're looking for a cheap game and you don't want to get any, because you don't want to get back into Magic for obvious reasons, and want to try something different, come on by. Let us show you the game. Let you get in some games. See if you can wrap your head around it, and we go from there. Thank you for joining us tonight, and hope to see you at the store.